Hello, I'm Rodsley, and in this video I'm going to teach you how I'm playing Shadowlands Mistweaver Monk. The build I run revolves around fist weaving with the legendary ancient teaching of the monastery in both Mythic Plus and Raid. Everything I go over is based on my own personal opinions, build, and playstyle. There are other options that are just as viable, and my way may not be the way you feel is best, and that's okay. You can catch me live at twitch.tv/sir_Rodsley for Mythic Plus and raiding gameplay. For stats, you want to prioritize haste up to 15%, then verse, then crit, and finally mastery. Verse and crit are both relatively close, but verse also helps you negate damage, so I personally favor it. As for the 15% haste, this is roughly the break point to put Rising Sun Kick on a 10-second cooldown, as well as making the feel of the spec much cleaner. Usually going with the highest item level pieces you have while slightly favoring haste up to 15% will give you a solid stat distribution. As for trinkets, you are looking for trinkets that are going to be giving you a good boost to your stats. I am liking trinkets like the PvP Insignia and Badge, or things like Unbound Changeling and Quantum Device from Dungeons. Consumables are essential in keys and raid. Go to your favorite innkeeper and make sure to stock up on the highest food and drink to consume during any downtime, and keys to upkeep your mana. Also stock up on flasks, potions, oils, and armor kits. For flasks, there's only one option this expansion, and it is the Spectral Flask of Power. For unused potions, you want to have a large supply of spiritual healing potions, spiritual mana potions, and potions of the hidden spirit for any invis skips your groups may end up doing. You will also want Potion of Spiritual Clarity for raid. Keep in mind you can use DPS potions as well, but they lock you out of using invis or mana potions, so plan ahead if you are going to be going down that route. For oils, I typically stick to using Shadowcore oil in all cases just for the slight boost in DPS, and if you do end up using DPS potions, they become even more potent. Lastly, for food, in Mythic Plus, I use Steak a la mode for the boost in versatility, and if in Raid a feast is available, you will want that for the boost in intellect. For Covenants, you can realistically play any of them. As for me though, I went Venthyr, which is not a popular choice. Its primary strength comes in the fact that almost no DPS or tanks went this Covenant. This allows you to fill in those gaps your groups might need for keys like Sanguine Depths and Halls of Atonement. The abilities for Venthyr are Door of Shadows, which is a 1.5 second cast teleport on a 1 minute cooldown. For some skips in dungeons, I can often get away with using this over an Invis potion, and ultimately it can be great for quick mobility when you're short on rolls to close gaps. As for our class ability, we get Fallen Order. Fallen Order summons various monks to assist you in combat every 3 seconds over a 24-second period. The Fallen Crane Adepts, which are the healers, will be casting Enveloping Mist on your allies, which can really help with your overall throughput in 5-man content like Mythic Plus. As for Raid, this ability feels a bit underwhelming unfortunately, but it's actually not that far off from other Covenant abilities. As for Soulbinds, General Draven, once fully available, will be our go-to, with a 10% damage reduction under 40% health, and Hold Your Ground, which increases your health by 10% and all healing done by 4%. Anytime you get a chance to stand still for 4 seconds, he is hard to beat. This path also gives you 2 potency conduits and either 2 endurance or 1 endurance and 1 finesse. My preference on potency conduits are Jade Bond as your primary conduit, followed by Imbued Reflections for dungeons and Rising Sun Revival for raid. For endurance conduits, I favor Fortifying Ingredients, followed by Harm Denial. These greatly improve your survivability, as well as making Expel Harm a much more efficient heal to use during Soothing Mist channel to heal you and an ally, while also giving you on-demand instant heal to yourself when your life depends on it. The only finesse conduit worth going is Dizzying Tumble. This conduit can be an excellent way to assist your tank in taking less damage for a short duration after your leg sweep ends in Mythic Plus. Now on to talents. The first tier I take Mist Wrap in Mythic Plus and typically Chi Burst in Raid. These are pretty straightforward, the additional % healing from Mist Wrap and Keys is very strong, and in Raid, with all these stacked fights, Chi Burst can be a strong pick for additional raid healing. Tier 2, playing Tiger's Lust in basically any situation is my go-to. Not only does it get rid of slows and roots that could be life-saving on you or your allies, but you can also use it to help your tank kite in sticky situations. I take Mana Tea at the tier 3 row to use in those heavy healing throughput moments where you dip into a large portion of your mana pool, which in Raid generally pairs nicely with your Yu'lon ramps. Ring of Peace is basically the only option in this tier 4 row due to its strengths for kiting and positioning. In tier 5, I always go Diffuse Magic. It is one of the strongest magical defensives in the game, and nearly every boss encounter and key has some sort of magic damage. It also is very good in situations where there are multiple things to dispel, since you can diffuse your debuff off and dispel any others. Tier 6, I go Refreshing Jade Winds in Raid and invoke Chi-Ji the Red Crane for keys. Refreshing Jade Wind in Raid is very powerful anytime you have up to 5 targets stacked with you and taking any rotting or consistent AoE damage, which this tier is filled with. Chi-Ji and keys can make Pridefuls much easier to deal with, since you won't have to pill off and spam heal the group and can kill it as fast as possible with your damage input. It is also very powerful in large pulls where your group is going to be taking large amounts of AoE damage. Rising Mist in this last tier will be your go-to in both Mythic Plus and Raid. The passive healing and heal over time extensions while doing your damage rotation will do equal if not more healing than upwelling, but also is much more damage and more mana efficient. Now that we have the build, we can go more into healing and damage rotation. As a Mistweaver, a lot of your healing is passive from Hot Uptime and extension from Rising Mist, and the healing from your legendary Ancient Teaching in the Monastery while you are DPSing enemies. All of this passive healing comes mostly from your single target rotation, so make sure you are focusing high priority mobs after you have tagged everything to apply your physical damage debuff Mystical Touch to all enemies. To maximize your legendary, you want to keep the buff Ancient Teaching in the Monastery up, so start off with an Essence Font channel going into the pack, and then you can Spinning Crane Kick if there are more than one enemy to tag and debuff. Some of the most important things to focus on is using Renewing Mist on cooldown. Even if everyone is topped, getting out and maintaining as many of these hots as possible is very important. That way when you need to spot heal with Vivify, you're maximizing the cleave it has from healing all allies affected by Renewing Mist for an additional amount. When Rising Sun Kick is almost off cooldown, refrain from using Blackout Kick and instead build up to 3 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery to increase the odds of making your next Blackout Kick casted after Rising Sun Kick to trigger a reset. A basic pull ends up looking like this. Essence Font followed by Spinning Crane Kick to tag all enemies, Renewing Mist into a Thunder Focus T followed by a Rising Sun Kick, Renewing Mist if available into another Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, and then Tiger's Palm if no Rising Sun Kick reset, and continue to do Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, and use Essence Font to refresh your legendary's buff. You basically are using Renewing Mist in place of Tiger Palm when available, or a Rising Sun Kick in place of Tiger Palm anytime it is reset, as well as Essence Font when your buff is about to fall off, and before your next Rising Sun Kick. Often you can't rely on your passive healing alone, and this is where, as a healer, the most important thing you can do is knowing and understanding the damage patterns of every encounter. The scariest point in a pull for a tank is in the beginning and after they run out of cooldowns and resources. In dungeons, if you're going into a big pull, take time to keep your tank safe while he gathers up the pack. Channel Soothing Mist and hit them with a quick Enveloping Mist and relax for a moment and Vivify when necessary. You can also have them going into a pull with a Life Cocoon and some Rolling Hots to get them started. Aside from just healing, you have Leg Sweep and Ring of Peace available for them to have a moment to get back on their feet and kite if necessary. Going into a large pool where there is going to be a lot of damage going out to your entire party, you can start rotating in Chi-Ji as well as Fallen Order or any other Covenant abilities to help boost your passive and overall healing to the group. Spot heal when necessary with Vivify, and just make sure to keep up with casting Renewing Mist on cooldown. Otherwise, sticking to your damage rotation with the help of Chi-Ji and Covenant abilities should help you get through most medium to high AoE damage encounters. In raids, the rotation stays relatively the same, other than you are casting Essence Font and Refreshing Jade Wind anytime there are 4 or more allies within range that are missing HP, as well as Chi Burst when you have injured allies in a line in front of you. Also, Vivify is efficient for group healing as long as you have up to 5 Renewing Mists out on the raid. But don't be stingy, your job is to keep people alive, so spot heal low targets with Vivify if they would otherwise die. Managing mana is by far one of the most asked questions I get. I often go multiple dungeons without having to sit for a drink at any point outside of Grievous weeks. A lot of this comes from playing with coordinated groups that are maximizing defensives and avoiding as much damage as possible with proper rotation and interrupts and both AoE and single target stuns. With that said, it's not all from that. Even in pugs with no comms, I often find myself not running into many, if any, mana problems. The biggest trap is casting too many Vivifies. Outside of spam healing a tank when they are in danger, Vivify should be an ability only used to spot heal low targets to get them healthy before upcoming damage. Or if there is any massive AoE damage consistently coming out to you and your allies, like a 20 stack Prideful and you don't have Chi-Ji or any other cooldowns available. When single target healing an ally with any kind of bleed or debuff, you can oftentimes keep them up with a Renewing Mist and Enveloping Mist hot while channeling Soothing Mist or passively healing them through your DPS. Mana potions and drinking during downtime, even if it's only for a few seconds, can be very helpful, so make sure to keep those handy and use them often, even if you aren't yet low on mana. A couple other big things I think help are maintaining Renewing Mists on you and your allies and understanding damage patterns. That way you know when you can passively and efficiently heal the group up or if you have to top them up right away before upcoming damage. And lastly, make sure you are planning out your cooldowns for the run. Healing with Chi-Ji the Red Crane in dungeons is very solid. I usually try to time these to be up for Pridefuls and troubling packs in between. While Chi-Ji is active, you want to stick to one of 2 DPS rotations. Rising Sun Kick, Tiger's Palm, Blackout Kick, or Tiger's Palm, Blackout Kick, if Rising Sun Kick is unavailable. These are the most efficient ways to maximize the stacks you get for your free and instant cast Enveloping Mist. With the Potency Conduit, Jade Bond, Chi-Ji becomes even stronger and you can start trying to lower the cooldown ahead of time if you know you're going to need it. In Raid, the healing from Yu'lon, the Jade Serpent, can be very powerful and is best paired with an Innervate if available. Using too many Enveloping Mists without Innervate can drain your mana pool and leave you useless towards the end of the fight if you aren't careful. Even without Innervate, you can still get some great use out of Yu'lon. You want to start off with a Mana Tea into Yu'lon and get out about 4 to 5 Enveloping Mists in your Mana Tea window while cycling in Refreshing Jade Wind and finishing off the last second of your Mana Tea with an Essence Font. After which you can throw in some Fist Weaving, and if additional group healing is needed, you can cast 1 or 2 more Enveloping Mists before Yu'lon expires. With Innervate, you can spam cast as many Enveloping Mists as necessary to top off your group, as well as following it up by a Mana Tea to do additional raid-wide healing. During Prideful healing, you want to stick to your normal rotation, getting out an Essence Font and as many Renewing Mists, as well as doing as much damage as possible. Towards the halfway mark, you want to start using something extra. I generally stick to timing my cooldowns to always have at least a Chi-Ji up for this. Chi-Ji alone, with the assistance from your passive healing, can get you through most Pridefuls up to about a 20 key. At or above 20 keys, you need to start making sure you have all of your cooldowns available, or DPS are using their damage cooldowns to make Prideful die at a reasonable rate. If If you don't have any cooldowns for a Prideful and you know one is coming up, try to top off your mana with a quick drink before going into the pack that's going to spawn it, and let your DPS know that they need to use defensives and cooldowns to get through it. I hope you guys enjoyed this guide and it was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below or join me in my Twitch and ask me live there. This is my first time ever writing a guide, so if you have any tips or would like to see more, let me know. Good luck in your keys and raid, and enjoy Mistweaver.